Good morning, everyone. I want us to think about mental health this morning. Often when we use that word mental health, we think about something negative. The term mental health usually makes us think of a mental health problem or a mental health illness. But actually, mental health is something that we all have all of the time. Mental health just means the things that we're thinking, the feelings that we're having, our emotions and our moods. Sometimes we have really positive mental health because we feel good and we have really positive emotions, but equally sometimes we can have quite negative feelings and thoughts. And if we're being honest, we can experience emotional highs and lows several times every single day, and that's a completely normal part of our mental health. Almost everyone takes care of their physical health. We are really good at recognising when we don't feel physically well. We might have a headache, we might feel run down and tired, we might have a sniffle, a sneeze, a cough or a cold. So we do things like rest, we stay in bed, we get lots of sleep, we might take medication that we buy over the counter like paracetamol or cough medicine in our efforts to make us well again. And after a few days, if we don't still feel any better, we might take ourselves off to the doctors to get some more advice. But we often don't see our mental health in the same way. But it's really important, and it's just as important as our physical health. We might be really physically fit, but if our minds are not healthy, it can really have an impact on our health, our well-being and our happiness. Our mental health is a little bit like the scale on a thermometer, and we can move up and down that scale at any time. We start off healthy, we have positive thoughts, we have positive feelings, but we can quite quickly slip into the coping, the struggling or the unwell categories. And there are things that we can do as soon as we recognise that we might be struggling a little bit, just like we would do if we felt physically unwell. I want you to watch this short clip and I want you to think about the two characters, both of whom are struggling a little bit with their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions. As you watch, I want you to think about what the characters were feeling, how it was impacting on them and what they did to try and make themselves feel better.
You can't tell how someone feels just by looking at them or what they share online. To the outside world, our lives may look perfect, even if in reality they aren't. I'm always worrying about doing well at school, and with the end of year test coming up, I'm not sure how much longer I can cope. My thoughts swarm around my head, sometimes keeping me up all night. Some days it's just all too much, and I feel like I'm lost in space. When I did badly on one of my tests, I just about kept it together until I got home. Then I broke down crying in front of my mum. She listened for a bit, and then she told me that, just like physical health, we all have mental health. It's our feelings, our thinking, our emotions, and our moods. She then said that feeling down, angry, and stressed is a normal part of life, just like it's normal to feel happy, confident, and carefree sometimes. We all have positive and negative emotions that come and go based on what's happening around us. These are everyday feelings. Good mental health means experiencing negative emotions. It's not always about being happy. Mum can relate to the feelings of stress. So when Mum suggested I take a break from everything and do something I enjoy, I actually took her advice. So I made myself a hot chocolate, snuggled up in a duvet and watched a film. And you know what? Afterwards I felt so much better. Mum should take her own advice.
Most of us only ever share the good things. We don't like to share how we really feel. Every morning when I wake up, negative thoughts stream through my head. Getting out of bed and pretending I'm okay takes all the energy I have. As the day goes on, the negative thoughts turn from a stream into a river. The water rushes through my head so loudly it's hard to concentrate in lessons. And some days it's so bad it feels like a waterfall that's trying to pull me over the edge. Everything is so overwhelming. I didn't think my friends would understand if I told them how down I was feeling. But when Sasha opened up to me about how stressed she was feeling, I told her. I wasn't sure how to bring up how I'd been feeling, so I started by saying that I didn't feel like myself. Just her listening made me feel like she understood. She She told me some things that had helped her, so I tried them too, but it didn't make much of a difference. Even when I tried to be around my friends, I felt alone. The things I used to enjoy weren't fun anymore.
I was really worried about Andre and not sure what to do. He was quiet and wasn't hanging out with us like he used to. So I asked our head of year for some advice. He suggested I get Andre to speak to him since his negative feelings weren't going away.
I didn't want to speak to our head of year, but I also didn't want to keep feeling so down, so I went. He said that sometimes we have overwhelming feelings that can be more intense than our everyday feelings. These feelings hang around for a long time and change the way we feel, think, and behave. They can stop us doing what we want to in life. That's what I was going through. He also said that if we're physically unwell, we let people know, we ask for help. It should be no different with mental health. Sometimes our overwhelming feelings are brought on because of things in our life. Sometimes they happen for no reason at all. After hearing this, I felt much less alone and it felt good to talk. Scientists have found exercise can help when you're feeling low, so our head of year encouraged me to sign up to the school football club, which Sasha was already in. I still have days when the river is there, but now I'm beginning to understand my mental health. I'm learning how to cope. Our head of year reminded me that my friends, family, teachers, and lots of others at school are there to help just as much as he is. I had no idea the people around me could be so understanding. And while it's not always easy to talk about my mental health, the person I'm talking to might be able to help. If you don't feel like talking, that's fine. You could try writing, sports, reading, art, music, playing with your pet, whatever makes you feel better.
If you're the person someone talks to when they're struggling, just listen with no pressure or judgments. You don't have to have the answer. If you feel unsure about anything, you can speak to a trusted adult. Talking about mental health doesn't have to be difficult. After all, it's something we all have.
So what was going on for Sasha? Sasha's main issue was worrying about her schoolwork and her progress and her test results. Her thoughts were quite intense and they were affecting her for most of the time. Rather than ignoring how she felt and hoping it would just sort itself out, she decided to speak to someone she trusted, her mum. And her mum was able to give her some really good advice about her feelings just being normal and that she needed to actually take some time out for some relaxation, which is just what Sasha did. Having that stress-free time to relax and do something she really enjoyed helped her, and after a while the negative feelings went away. The feelings that Sasha was having were typical of any person and were what we call everyday feelings. Life is like that. There are lots of things that we worry about. Sometimes those worries can really cloud our thoughts, but these types of feelings are temporary, and usually after talking it through and taking advice, those feelings don't stick around for very long. In Andre's case, it was a little bit different. The way that he was feeling about things were much more negative, it was much more long lasting, and it was much more intense. And most importantly, it was stopping him from doing the things that he would usually enjoy, like spending time with his friends. To begin with, he did what Sasha did and tried to take some time out to relax and chill out, but that didn't work for him because his feelings were much too intense. After speaking to his friend Sasha, he took her advice and went to speak to his head of year, even though he didn't actually want to do that to begin with. His head of year was really helpful and he gave him some proactive advice of things that he might do. In this case, it was getting some exercise, which actually is a scientifically proven way to help improve our feelings and our mood. Andre's feelings went much beyond everyday feelings. They are what we would call overwhelming feelings that really get in the way of our everyday life and stopping us doing the things that we enjoy. When our feelings become overwhelming like that, we need to get some support, because if we don't, we risk tipping over into becoming mentally unwell. So our everyday feelings are just the feelings that come and go. They're our normal reaction to things that might happen in our lives. They change all the time and they can change several times a day. But everyday feelings don't stop us from enjoying our lives, and they don't stop us from doing the things that we would normally do. And they don't usually hang around for very long. Whereas overwhelming feelings are much more intense. They hang around for a much longer period of time. Overwhelming feelings change the way that we think, the way that we feel, and sometimes they even change the way that we behave. And they stop us enjoying the things that we normally like to do. The emotional ups and downs of life can be really tough, but the current situation with COVID that we've all been experiencing for the last 8 months make life even tougher and much more stressful than it is usually. There are lots of things that we're all worried about at the moment. Missing our friends and family, which is only going to get worse given that we go back into lockdown this Thursday. Coping with being in the house most of the time, worrying about our own health, whether we might become ill, thinking about our loved ones and whether they're going to be safe. And then, of course, we're all worrying about how long this is actually going to go on for and when we can get back to normal. I would encourage you to think about your own stress bucket. What are the things at the moment that you are most worried about? What is stressing you out? What's on your mind? And then my next question is, what are you actually going to do about it? What steps can you take to empty your bucket? Because there are plenty of things that we can all do, despite the restrictions that we might have in place at the moment. Talking to someone you trust is always a good idea. A problem shared can be a problem halved, and sometimes just talking it through with someone helps you feel better rather than bottling it up and trying to cope on your own. The majority of people will be feeling the same way that you do. They will have exactly the same thoughts, exactly the same worries, and exactly the same stresses that you are experiencing. They just might not be talking about it. Keeping ourselves busy at the moment, I think, is one of the best pieces of advice. Most of this, I know, is having to be done indoors, but try and think just beyond being online. Things like cooking a meal, baking, playing games, drawing, painting, getting exercise, they're all really therapeutic activities that actually will help to lighten our mood. Finally, I just want to share with you where you can go for help and support if you're struggling. There are lots of people in college who can help. We talk about our Newman family often, and as a family we look out for and support each other, so you can pretty much speak to any adult that you know and trust. If you would rather reach out for advice in other ways, there are a number of online support websites and text services for young people, which are listed here. You'll be seeing some posters going up around the college building this week, giving details of the Couth and Young Minds services. And finally, please don't forget the Newman Here For You email that's available for anybody within school to use. This can be used if you've got your own worries, or also if you're worried about another pupil or one of your friends. Thanks for listening this morning, and let's do our best to keep smiling and keep positive.